Hello, welcome to the Psychology of Good and Evil. In this lecture, we'll break down blame and other moral judgments to attempt to answer the question, what goes into our evaluations of right and wrong? How do we make moral judgments? What really matters when we judge good and evil? Across the very large literature on moral judgment, there is little agreement about the best unit of analysis. Scholars have proposed a lot of research on moral judgment, but they tend to focus on a specific aspect of moral judgment. Some researchers focus on the act itself and the qualities of the act that cause people to make certain moral judgments about it. Others focus on how people assess the person, how moral judgments are tied to beliefs about what kind of person one is, what people are thinking and feeling when they act. These different levels of information influence whether we judge something as right or wrong, and someone as good or bad. It's largely acknowledged that the act, the person, the cognition and emotion, they're all involved in moral judgment. So this breadth of focus is warranted. In this lecture, we will dive into theories of moral judgment, emphasizing two prominent perspectives. The idea that moral judgment hinges on, one, beliefs about people's psychological processing about isolated acts, versus two, the idea that moral judgment is ultimately an evaluation of a person and their stable character. We'll start with theory and evidence promoting the view that moral judgments typically coincide with what would be expected from a field called virtue ethics. That the individual is the unit of analysis for moral judgment, and moral judgment typically involves the evaluation of a person's character. Proponents of person-based accounts of moral judgment acknowledge that acts happen and they are assessed as right or wrong. However, the focus is on another question that arises when wrong things happen. Is the person who caused this good or bad? This global evaluation of a person's stable character then colors our judgment of their acts. Researchers from this perspective claim that puzzling findings, such as people's extremely negative judgments about some transgressions, even when the transgressions are not harmful to anyone, remember Jonathan Haidt's work on moral dumbfounding, such findings can be understood and well addressed by person-centered accounts. To these theorists, acts are mere signals of the moral character of an agent, which people are very keen to understand and track. People's values are informative to their actions, so actions can tell us about the character of a person. The question pops up here, but are actions reliable signals about the moral character of a person or their future actions and whether they'll be moral or immoral? Person-centered models suggest that character judgments are part of action prediction for the future. And they cite as evidence for this that these judgments, these character judgments, occur intuitively, spontaneously, and automatically. People rely on these automatic judgments. For example, some research shows that one way people make moral trait evaluations is just from facial appearance, as in the shape of parts of the face. Here you can see that simulated people with prominent V-shaped brows are rated more dominant, whereas simulated people with more baby faces are perceived as more trustworthy by participants who are shown these simulated faces and asked about their ratings. Here we have a prototypical dominant face on the left and a prototypical trustworthy face on the right. Why do these traits cause people to infer dominance and trustworthiness? Researchers propose that facial trait inference is an adaptive mechanism. Traits are inferred from more basic cues, signaling whether we should approach or avoid someone. These basic cues about whether a person seems more or less likely to harm you give rise to generalizations about personality. For example, the person on the left is rated as less trustworthy very reliably compared to the person on the right who is rated as very trustworthy.